here to tell you my labor and delivery story. I have to go back and talk about my prenatal care a little bit. So I went to go see a midwife, and they recommended I get the progesterone shot, but they were kind of behind. Like pretty early on, I felt like I wanted to leave, but there was a huge issue with my insurance and I could not leave, and I just felt like they just weren't doing a good job. And originally I chose this because I wanted a water birth. They told me I had to make it to at least 37 weeks to get a water birth, but they also told me that they could give me the P15 or P17 shot, which is the progesterone shot, to help delay my labor. That never panned out. And I was also seeing a specialist, and they were telling me that the specialist was supposed to give me the shot. I felt like they weren't really taking my concerns seriously. I felt like they were just kind of keeping me there. Obviously, this is not their fault for, you know, what happened. Like I said, I've seen a specialist, and my specialist was telling my midwife that I was super high risk, and they told me really early on, my midwife, that they would have to transfer me out if I was labeled high risk. And I was labeled high risk in June, but they didn't transfer me out until after 4th of July, because my last appointment with my midwife was supposed to be July 3rd, but it was actually not even supposed to be then. I was supposed to be taken out before then. So they really wanted me to go, but I was going out of town the week of 4th of July. I canceled that appointment, and I wasn't really concerned at that point that I was gonna go into labor or anything. At this point, I was 29 weeks, so I thought it was fine. I rescheduled the appointment while I was still on vacation so that I could go to the doctor the week that we came back. So I went to one appointment, and that was it. Okay, so now the actual story. That Monday that we came back, because we came back like really late Sunday night, and again had his 15-month appointment, and then Wednesday I had my first OB appointment, and then Thursday I had my specialist appointment. Friday, July 13th was the day I went into labor. I had a dream that I went into labor, and I don't really believe in like dream interpretation, because I've had like a million dreams that I tried to like look into, and there was nothing of it. And I also had like a lot of dreams where I went to labor with Anakin, and those never ever panned out. So I wasn't like concerned at all, or even thought like, oh, I'm actually gonna go into labor today, because I was only 30 weeks. In the morning time, everything was fine. I did whatever I do in the morning. I can't remember what I did that day. So everything was normal up until 2 p.m. At 2 p.m. I started to have weird contractions. It wasn't abnormal, because I had been having contractions for a couple weeks. I, once again, didn't think anything of it. Usually at 2 is when Chip leaves for work. They were getting to the point where it's like I was kind of doubled over. And usually around this time, I have contractions, and I kind of chalked them up to like, I didn't want Chip to leave. And I guess he thought that too, because, you know, this has happened before. At 2:15, we began timing them. First I thought I was being like dramatic, but then they did get increasingly worse. He was like, well, they'll probably go away. Just like relax, or, you know, sit down. Let me do this stuff, and then we'll see where we're at. And this is when I figured I should go to the hospital, but Chip was like, no, let's wait until your water breaks, because I don't want to go to the hospital for a false alarm. I had called a lift for him, but then he was like, it's your choice if you want to cancel it. And I just had a gut feeling that he needed to stay. And I also felt like I wasn't capable of taking care of Anakin, because he's very high maintenance. He wanted to play, he hadn't eaten lunch. So I figured I couldn't take care of him and like the awful contractions I was having. After they were consistently a minute apart, and they were getting closer, like it was like 1 minute and 46 seconds. I may still have the baby center timer. If I do, I'll put it in. Once they started getting closer and closer together, like it started at like 1 minute 47, and then it went to like 1 minute 20. Chip called my aunt. Chip was on the phone with my aunt, and he was like, well, her water didn't break. I'm not sure if you should go to the hospital or not. But then I felt like a pop, and I thought my water broke. but it was my bloody show. Chip was like, okay, well, you're bleeding. So I was like, okay, well, we should probably definitely go to the hospital at this point. When Chip was calling my aunt, I was at the point where I couldn't even talk. The contractions were hurting so bad. I was on the toilet and I had to poop. And Chip was like, well, if it's labor, you probably should poop because you don't want to poop while you're in labor. I was like, true. But, yeah, so being on the toilet, like, helped through the contractions a little bit, but the pain still didn't stop. There was nothing I could do. Like, the contractions were rolling into one another. I told Chip at some point between contractions, like, I can't wear pants. Like, I'm not wearing pants. Like, don't try to fucking put pants on me. I still at this point didn't know I was in labor. Chip was telling me that my aunt was like 30 minutes away, and then he kept trying to like, and Anakin's awake, like he's trying to play with me, and he's not concerned at all, not scared. So he was going between trying to take care of me and, you know, give me updates on like, okay, well, your aunt said she'll be here at 3:30, it's 3:05. You have 25 minutes. Next biggest fear was going into labor when traffic, and like I said, it was 3 o'clock Friday. There was traffic and the hospital's 30 minutes away. Chip had to carry me out and I was still trying to take off my pants. Like, he had to wrap a towel around me and I had like pants on, but I wasn't like wearing them because I couldn't. Like, it just hurt so bad. I had no shoes, and I did not have shoes for my entire stay in the hospital, nor when I came back. Like, that was like the first thing I did when I got home. I put on some freaking shoes, because towards the end of the ride, like while we were off the highway about 10 minutes away from the hospital, I started to feel tons and tons of pressure. Now, weirdly, the pressure was in my butt. And I always told Chip, like, I think this kid's gonna fall out of my butt because I always felt butt pressure. But it was to the point where, like, my body was starting to push. And, once again, I wasn't sure if it was the baby or if I just had to take a poop. We get to the hospital and they get me a wheelchair. And I'm still not wearing pants, but my pants are like halfway on. Like, you couldn't see anything, but like you could tell my pants are on. They rushed me into triage and they were like, oh my god, is she pushing? And they were like, don't have a baby down here. You can't have a baby down here. But then they saw that I was bleeding. And at this point, Chip was not with me. He had to go fill out paperwork. Well, at first they were talking about a C-section because I was bleeding. I was like, oh, like, great. But at the same time, like, I just wanted the pain and I literally wasn't about to care if I had to have a C-section. But they had told one of the nurses to check me and they were trying to figure out who my OB was and I couldn't, like, communicate and Chip was gone. They were going to check me, but then they were like, oh, well, I think I see the baby. Like, I was like, great. And then they were like, oh, well, let's rush her immediately to a delivery room. Because obviously I was about to have a baby. And I was like, oh, yes, I'm in labor. I was like, well, at least, because I thought I was going to poop in my aunt's van, and I didn't. They were rushing me to labor and delivery, and they were telling me not to push, but, like, it was pretty much out of my hands at that point. Like, it wasn't my choice to push or not push. And his head was coming out the hallway, and I was like, literally, the baby's freaking coming. I can't remember what I said. I'm pretty sure it's just like the baby's coming. So his head was coming out in the hallway, and they get me in the room, blood everywhere already. And then, like, I could feel him about to cry. My water started to break. 2 seconds before his head comes out, my water explodes. And I mean that with, like, the most literal term, explode. Because it wet the entire bed, it was on the floor, it was everywhere. And Chip wasn't in the room with me, he was still registering. There was no OB in the room, couldn't get there fast enough. I don't think NICU had even made it yet. A nurse delivered the baby, even though technically I pushed him out myself. I can't remember who came in first. I think it was NICU, and then an OB came in, and he was rough. He was like literally trying to put like gauze in there, and I was like, I just had a freaking baby. When I gave birth, he was bluish, and he wasn't crying. But I don't know, I didn't feel super concerned. For one thing, I kind of knew the chance for him living was high, but I also, I don't know, it's just a gut feeling. The NICU was working on him in the room, and I did hear him cry eventually, and this is all before Chip came in. But I do remember like how tiny he was. He was so tiny. Chip came in shortly after. I think they still hadn't even put in my IV when Chip came in. And I don't even think Chip knew I gave birth. I was asking them, is baby okay? And they weren't responding. I knew he wasn't like dead, but like, sorry, that's like triggering. I knew he wasn't like in a critical, well, he was in a critical state, but I knew he wasn't like not living, I guess. I don't know if I could just like feel it. I don't really know, because like I probably should have been terrified. Maybe it's like the adrenaline. But I kept asking if they were okay, and they weren't responding. And then eventually they did tell me he was okay, 5 minutes or something. So I took him to the NICU, and I knew they were gonna take him to the NICU. The NICU doctor actually came in shortly after and said, yeah, the baby's doing pretty decent for, you know, his gestation. He's 30 weeks. He's very small. He said he was breathing on his own, but they did end up having to put him on oxygen. And then they gradually like lowered the oxygen, but they did say that they saw immaturity in his lungs.